Most TV shows have a theme song. Some TV shows have a theme song that has no right hitting this hard.
The hell's that?
Hey, welcome back to Themes That Have No Business Hitting This Hard. The show where we talk about television themes that somehow went way harder than anyone expected. You know the ones, songs written for kids shows that accidentally became emotional masterpieces. Themes that hit you with nostalgia so hard you suddenly remember the smell of VHS tapes, summer vacation, and cereal commercials. And today, we have two absolute legends. One is colorful, theatrical, weird, and feels like a fever dream you're not entirely sure actually existed. The other is pure suburban 90s poetry wrapped in garage rock guitars and giant plaid shirts. Today, we're talking about Zoobilee Zoo and the Adventures of Pete and Pete. And somehow, both of these themes completely rule.
Everyone up, everyone in. Time for the fun to begin. Come along.
Before we even talk about the theme itself, can we acknowledge how absolutely unhinged Zoobilee Zoo was? If you were a kid in the 80s, you remember seeing this show and immediately thinking one of two things. Either, wow, this place looks magical, or what the living hell is happening? And honestly, both reactions are correct. It was a cool looking place, but what the fuck? Zoobilee Zoo debuted in 1986 and starred people dressed as colorful animal-human hybrids living in a giant fantasy land called Zoobilee Zoo. Already, we're off to an incredible start. You had Mayor Ben, Talkatoo Cockatoo, fucking scary nightmare fuel, Bill the Beaver, Was It Kangaroo, Van Gogh Lion, and Bravo Fox. Every character looked like they were designed by someone who had unlimited access to face paint and absolutely no fear, but it was fearful for us to watch. Yet somehow it worked. The whole show had this theatrical energy that felt like a stage play mixed with a children's fever dream, mixed with public access television. But then the theme song starts, and suddenly this bizarre show becomes weirdly emotional. Magic and wonder are waiting for you? Come on. That line alone already sounds like the beginning of some epic fantasy. The theme doesn't just introduce the show, it invites you somewhere. That's the key difference. A lot of children's themes in the 80s were catchy. Zoobilee Zoo's theme was magical. There's this huge, almost theatrical Broadway style energy to it. Orchestration swells, the vocals are gigantic. Everyone's singing like this is the final number in a musical where the kingdom has finally been saved. And meanwhile, the visuals are just giant animal people roller skating. That contrast somehow makes it even better. And then you hit the chorus. Zoobilee Zoo, Zoobilee Zoo. That melody gets stuck in your fucking head forever. You can go decades without hearing it. Then someone says the word Zoobilee Zoo one time, and suddenly your brain starts playing the entire song in crystal clear HD quality. IMAX, whatever it is for listening, I don't know. That's power. And the thing that makes this theme hit so hard is how sincere it is. There's no irony, no wink to the audience. Nobody involved was treating this like a joke. The performers, they're going all in. The singers are going all in. The music is going all in. They genuinely wanted kids to feel transported somewhere magical. And that sincerity is what makes old kids television so special. Modern shows sometimes feel terrified of being earnest. Everything has to be sarcastic. Everything has to undercut itself with jokes. But 80s kids shows? They would look you dead in the eye and say, yes, this is a magical animal city. Believe in it. And kids did. That's why the theme still works. It commits completely. There's also this weird emotional layer now when adults revisit it, because Zoobilee Zoo feels so impossibly tied to childhood innocence. Watching it now feels like uncovering some lost memory buried deep in your brain. Bright colors, the costumes, the giant smiles, the music. It almost feels dreamlike. Like something you imagined instead of something was actually aired on television. And honestly, half the internet spent years debating whether the show is even real. That's how surreal it is. But that theme song, very real. And believably catchy. There's also something hilarious about how huge the song sounds. You would think this intro belonged to the biggest fantasy adventure movie ever made. Like this should be introducing dragons and epic battles. Instead, it's introducing some animal people hybrids. Amazing. And one underrated thing about the theme is the pacing. It never drags. Melody keeps moving. Every section feels bigger than the last. By the time it ends, you feel like you just watched the opening number of a Broadway production. That's why this song has survived for decades. It's not just nostalgia, it's legitimately well crafted. And the older you get, the more you appreciate how much effort people used to put into children's programming. Nobody had to make Zoobley Zoo's theme this good, but they did. And for that, we thank them. Now we go from the theatrical 80s fantasy chaos to one of the coolest television themes ever made. Period. The end. The Adventures of Pete and Pete wasn't just a kid's show. It was a suburban mythology. Everything about it felt different. The atmosphere, the humor, the random surrealism, the oversized flannel shirts, the endless summer vibe. This show somehow captured what childhood felt like better than anything else, which is why it is the best kids TV show of all time. And the theme song? Absolute perfection for the show. Hey Sandy by Polaris. Right away, the guitar hits, and you instantly know this isn't going to be a normal Nickelodeon show. There's no goofy chanting, there's no cartoon sound effects, no exaggerated kid voices. Instead, you get this legitimately incredible alternative rock song. And not good for a kid's show, just flat out good. Like if somebody played Hey Sandy for you without context, you think it was a lost 90s college classic, which it basically is. The intro alone is legendary. Those guitars immediately throw you into a world of the show. There's this dreamy but emotional energy to it. It feels nostalgic even while you're listening to it. That's hard to do. And then the visuals start. Pete riding his bike, summer streets, suburban weirdness, orange everything. It perfectly matches the tone. Pete and Pete understood atmosphere better than almost any kid's show ever made. The theme isn't just catchy, it creates a mood. And that's why it hits so hard. Let's talk about Polaris for a second, because they absolutely crushed this song. They also have other songs from Pete and Pete which are really good. You should take a listen. The Adventures of Pete and Pete accidentally introduced an entire generation of kids to alternative rock. For a lot of people, this was their first exposure to music that sounded cool in a different way. No polished pop, no toy commercial music, real guitars, real emotion, real mood. There's a reason so many 90s kids still adore this song decades later. It respected the audience. Pete and Pete always felt slightly smarter and stranger than other kid shows, and the music reflected that. Even the lyrics felt mysterious. People spent years trying to figure out what the lyrics actually were. Half the internet thought they heard, "Can you settle to shoot me?" Others heard completely different things. Honestly, the confusion somehow made the song cooler. It gave the theme this mythological quality, like a bootleg tape you found in someone's garage. Then there's the emotional side of it. Pete and Pete captures a very specific kind of nostalgia. Not just nostalgia for the 90s, but nostalgia for being young during the summer. Riding bikes, staying out too late, neighborhood adventures that felt gigantic at the time, things that aren't real anymore. The feeling that your town secretly had magic hidden inside it. That's what this theme sounds like. And honestly, it's kind of emotional hearing as an adult, because the song reminds you of a version of life where everything felt bigger, a version of life that no longer exists, unfortunately. The world seemed endless. A random summer afternoon could become a legendary memory. Pete and Pete understood that better than almost any show. And musically, Hey Sandy still holds up. That's the crazy part. You can listen to it right now, and it still sounds cool. The guitars still sound great. Melody still works. The energy is still there. This wasn't just a disposable TV intro. It was an actual song. That's rare. And what's funny is that the show itself almost feels impossible now. The weird, artsy, alternative suburban comedy for kids with indie rock music and surreal storytelling, there's absolutely no chance modern television executives would greenlight this today. Which is exactly why it feels so special. Pete and Pete came from a very specific era where Nickelodeon was willing to get weird. And thank God they did, because now we have one of the greatest television themes ever made. What's fascinating about both Zoobley Zoo and Pete is how completely different they are. One is a giant theatrical fantasy energy. The other is laid back alternative rock melancholy. And yet both themes hit incredibly hard for the same reason. They create a feeling. That's what the best television themes do. They transport you somewhere instantly. The second you hear them, you're back in a certain time, a certain age, a certain version of yourself. And honestly, television themes used to matter more. Streaming changed a lot of that. Now everybody skips intros. But back then, the theme was part of the experience. You heard it every single episode. It became burned into your brain. And that's why people still remember these songs decades later. Kids television used to have way more musical ambition. People really put effort into these themes. Somebody sat down and thought, we're going to make a song kids will remember forever. And fucking mission accomplished. Zoobley Zoo made you feel like magic existed. And Pete made you feel like suburban summers were legendary. Both succeeded completely. And both themes are honestly better than they had any right to be. Those are two more themes that had absolutely no business hitting that hard. The giant theatrical wonder of Zoobly Zoo and the dreamy garage rock perfection of The Adventures in Pete and Pete. Two completely different vibes, two unforgettable songs. And proof that sometimes the opening theme becomes just as important as the show itself. Now I want to hear from you. Which themes hit harder for you? Which television theme instantly transports you back to your childhood? And what should we cover next on themes that have no business hitting this hard? If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like it, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. And remember, sometimes the best songs of your childhood came from the weirdest shows imaginable. Deadass. See you guys in the next one.